Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanny and Clarky visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay.
Oh, good.
All right.
Hello.
Hello. Well, this is very exciting.
It is super exciting. So after like 18 months of lockdown and COVID carry on, probably nearly 2 years now, Carla, I know you're still in WA. It's a bit disappointing because you're still so far away and you can't get out. But Schmidty and I and Woo are in the same room. So nice to see your face in face instead of on Zoom or whatever it is.
Yeah, I totally agree. As I sip my drink.
I like that glass too.
Oh, you mean this trial by wine glass?
I do mean that trial by wine glass.
Feeling like you're missing out there, Carla? There you go.
Absolutely. Although you'll be very proud of me. I've got a glass and I've got myself some rosé today. So that I know I don't want everyone to be too shocked, but I thought I'd make a special effort, seeing as though we were celebrating, as you call it, your COVID. What was it? Shenanigans? No, COVID. What was the C word you used for COVID? I liked it just then.
The C word.
Yes, not the C word.
Oh.
You just use this terminology for COVID. COVID carry on, you called it.
Oh, right.
And the fact that you come
COVID
to
carry on.
Went right down the wrong rabbit hole about the C word.
I clearly don't listen to myself because I had no idea that I even said that.
I laughed and I thought it was quite apt, especially for WA. It is totally COVID carry on. Like there could be a series, the COVID carry on.
It's like
goes on and
in
on.
WA. It's like that carry on laughing series. That was a carry on series. It's like it's
Totally,
carry on
just
COVIDing over there.
Carry on COVIDing. Woohoo! Episode. I don't know, 375.
7,645,000.
We had plans to
Featuring
stop
Mark
producing.
McGowan.
Yes, we had plans to stop producing any more episodes, but no, we're going again.
Carry on COVID.
Indeed. Right, so now that we've established what some of us are in the same room, not all of us, what are we drinking?
Oh, well, this is funny, right? Because normally we'd go through 3 drinks that we're drinking. Actually, you're not drinking it. God, I got carried away then. I thought because we're all in the same room, we'd all be drinking the same stuff.
That's because you didn't actually offer me one.
Well, no, because you were so proud of your dodgy cruises. Would you
I'm
like
drinking
to?
someone else's
Would
dodgy
you like to
cruises
drink what
right
we're
now.
drinking?
Oh, that is a Tarrawara Chardonnay, my favourite.
It's a Chardonnay, you shan't. Okay, so what we are drinking and what you are going to be drinking shortly is a Tarrawara Estate 2012 Reserve Chardonnay from the Yarra Valley.
Beautifulness. I've got some
very nice.
similar vintages that I haven't allowed anyone to drink of the same wine because it is the best.
Way.
Absolutely. Most beautiful Chardonnay I've ever had.
Well, this is exciting. There you go. You can scull that
Regina.
cruiser and we'll get you onto something else. But yeah, enough of that. Carla, what are you drinking?
Well, it's not terribly exciting. It's just one of my favourite rosés, the Ramador. But I'm doing that on the back of going to a 21st last night where I drank bucket loads of champagne. So I'm very lucky that I'm not too nasally, really, so that I can have a little glass of rosé with you to celebrate you guys being together. And
Well, cheers, darling.
Cheers.
Sorry, that was me coughing. The thing I love about you saying I drank bucket loads of champagne.
Yep.
And I'm not too nasally, as opposed to, and my head's not in a bucket vomiting.
Well, there was a moment, I have to say, that it's been so hot over here. We've had a heat wave. And this is like day 5, I think it was last night. So I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning and I was like, oh God, I feel so rough. So I went and found another bed in the house that was cool with more air conditioning. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be so sick tomorrow. But I'm actually fine. So I'm just a bit tired, bit shaky. But things are much better than I thought they were going to be at 4 a.m. Trust me. They weren't looking good at that point. But okay, I'm okay.
Good job.
Nice.
Yes.
I suppose we should introduce ourselves for those people who have just joined us. So I'm Schmidty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarky. And
And
together we are
We are.
Trial by Wine. That could have been our best one ever.
We'll find out when I do the edit. As
Ain't
per
that
every
the
week.
Who's got a story for us?
Not me.
Hopefully
I thought it was
you.
you.
Hopefully you.
Yes, I have. Anything else we want to talk about before we start?
Well, I think we should talk about the elephant in the room,
We
otherwise
should.
known as our fabulous guest.
So,
Not actually an elephant at all.
Yes. So today's story is about legal process, and so we've got our dear friend of Trial by Wine, who is a lawyer, a very, very good lawyer, and her name is Regina Lawless. Regina, welcome.
Hi everyone. Thanks for
Hi.
the invitation.
So Regina is going to be giving us some expert commentary on this story. So I'm going to take you through the whole story, and then we'll unpick it with Regina, which should be a little bit of fun. It's quite a serious story, and one that really makes me angry. So for those of you who know us well, you'll know that Stuart and I love to watch movies about the challenges that Black people have had, particularly in America, things like The Colour Purple and those sorts of things that, that they really are quite emotive for us, but we love it when things work out in the end. And so this story, I think, for me is one that I was quite shocked to hear about, but I'll take you through it. It's interesting, but I would encourage you, because it is a bit serious, to interject as much as you can and make lots of jokes. Otherwise, it'll just be a boring, serious podcast.
Am I going to end up as extremely drunk as I was in the Marie Joseph story? Because I get very angry about these things and drink too much.
Fuck, I hope so. That'd be great. If you could commit
Sorry,
to that.
Regina. I apologise in advance.
Don't
Some
worry,
of us might
Regina
also
will be
drunk.
giving us her expert legal commentary whilst quite drunk, I'm sure. So, yes. Alrighty then, so I'll get on with it. So today's story is called The Camouflaged Assassin Rapper. So it's about a rapper, and he was the camouflage assassin. So
A mouthful.
It is. So his name's McKinley.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? The camouflage assassin.
It doesn't even sound cool, like the camouflage assassin. Like,
it's like I'd be very interested to see how that name came about, because it does feel rather
8 syllables is a lot.
It's a lot to work with.
Camouflage assassin.
assassin rapper.
Rapper.
Right. Camouflage. Oh, that. I didn't put that in.
Ah,
Right.
okay. I was going to say.
I can count.
You can. You're very good at it.
Critiquing this early in the podcast.
Whoa.
Funny. So it's about McKinley Phipps. He grew up as the eldest of 6 kids in uptown Nolans, Broadmoor community. As the first person in his immediate family to pursue music professionally, Phipps developed a love for hip-hop by watching one of his uncle's friends DJ family parties. His mother, Sheila, was a painter and a visual artist, and she always encouraged him to pursue a creative path. His dad, on the other hand, was a Vietnam vet who worked for the VA hospital and instilled values in McKinley about taking care of his family. And from all of the research I've done and all of the stories that I've seen through that process, he just seems like a really lovely soul.
The father?
No, McKinley.
McKinley himself. Okay.
Yeah. Oh goodness, I didn't do the sources. So I came across this story watching ID on Foxtel, and I can't recall the name of the show, so I'm going to have to say that up front. But it was a really good show. So that was one of my sources.
So sorry. Your sources something on Investigation Discovery.
Exactly
Is that what it
right.
stands
Go
for?
find it.
Yeah, and good luck with that. But also theundefeated.com, redbulletin.com, xxlmag.com, our Huffington Post. So they're my sources.
No lab.
No lad Bible.
No Lad Bible.
Oh, let us down again.
I'm going to have to start, when I find a topic, Googling that on Lad Bible.
Yeah.
Probably searching for that on Lad
That's what
Bible
I
is a
do.
better thing to see if it's there.
Absolutely. Because you've razzed me so much about not sourcing on Lad Bible. I always check.
We did razz you about having credible sources too, which,
I'm sorry. about
only credible sources.
that. Really let
That's
the
the
team
Point
down.
of that.
I think Carla and I were most disappointed. Anyway, so a local rapper, Gregory D, and DJ Manny Fresh noticed his talent from an early age. He was a very prodigious.
Prodigious.
Yeah, it's funny. I've got this written down as prodigious, and I literally just cut and pasted that bit.
That's
So,
how you spell it.
Yeah.
But you say prodigious.
well, there we go. Good chat. I learned so much on this podcast.
You're the
It's
one looking
great.
at me funny. Now that we're
It's an
face to
education.
face,
Mm.
it's quite different dynamic, isn't it?
It is a very different dynamic. So he was a prodigious talent with an impressive flow and an extensive vocabulary. And when the preteen wasn't in school, he was already in the studio recording until the wee hours of the morning. He promised his parents that he would keep his grades up if they agreed to let him sign a record deal. He was beyond his years. Phipps's first DJ Wop, says, "That little dude was phenomenal. He mesmerised his rhymes pretty quickly. It almost..." Gosh, I'm struggling. I've already had 2 glasses of wine. Apologies, everyone. It's almost like he's remembering it as he's writing. Mac is not a 5-take person. It's either 1 or 2 takes. So Mac was also known as Little Mac because he was a kid at the time, and he became one of New Orleans hip-hop's first child stars. A product of the Broadmoor neighbourhood in Uptown, Mac started writing rhymes in the 80s, battling with other kids and adults in the neighbourhood. Victory at a local talent show landed him a deal with Yo Records, where at the age of 13 he'd release his album, The Lyrical Midget.
Oh,
I just love that. The
Is
Lyrical
that a
Midget.
lyrical small person?
Well, he was a child, not a midget. It's like impersonating a midget.
are you allowed to use that word?
No.
I think it's
Which
I
word?
can't remember if that,
Person or a small
I don't think it's.
person or something.
It's
Yeah, isn't it
insensitive.
like?
It
old
was his
school talk
album.
and stuff?
Oh, okay.
What's annoying though? Well, not annoying. What's kind of
I know it was
odd?
his album.
Are you allowed to use that word? If you're a midget, you can probably use it. If you're a kid, you can't use it. Surely, you just.
I like the fact that we're debating about midget, not lyrical. Because, was it particularly lyrical?
It's rap, of course. It's lyrical.
They all
It's
say
all
it's
about the
lyrical.
lyrics.
Lyrical. It's just yakety yak 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 yak.
It's not good lyrics necessarily, but it is lyrical.
Thank you. You just proved my point.
But he's not a midget.
It's just they were very short songs.
Little song.
Oh, I like that.
It is one of those terms. I've looked it up, and midget was formerly used to describe dwarfs, but now it's
Are
regarded
you
as
allowed to
offensive.
say that even?
I'm reading that from Wikipedia. I'm saying that's what they're saying. Historically, the term midget was used to describe dwarfs, and I don't think you can say that either now.
I love the way she's
It's
saying
saying the
it
term is
twice.
now often regarded as offensive. I was like, so I think small person is all you've got to work with.
I love how we're moving away from having words for things. So you can't
Yes.
actually have a word that means
Yeah, you have to describe
that.
it
You've
in
got
a
to
more
say
sort
they're a
of
small
generic
person.
way.
But then if you were to say you're a big person, that doesn't refer to the whole population.
I
that
guess he's
isn't-
thinking that if he
a
had
small
called himself the
person.
lyrical small person, it probably didn't have the same.
wouldn't have been the same
Impact.
cut through.
Big as in tall.
No, the lyrical
Oh.
small person. Yeah.
And anyway, Biggie Smalls might have had a problem with that.
He's
But
just
if you're
confused.
a big person, that's not like a normal person. So must be like small people who are midgets.
Did you just say something nasty about big people?
No, I'm just trying to work out relatively, if you're a small person, do you refer to the rest of the population as big people? Or do you have small person, normal sized person, big person?
Disproportionately large person.
Yeah, like what's the... because we can't have words for anything anymore. It's very confusing.
Maybe we should just
And
go
if
on
you're a small
heights.
person, do you call yourself a normal person and other people big people?
So all we should do is categorise by height. So 1.2 and unders, 1.x and,
Yes.
basically.
Or is Oompa Loompa an okay term?
Look at their orange
Yeah, I'm
faces.
thinking
as well.
probably
I love
think that-
Oompa Loompas.
I think what makes that problematic is simply that that's a fictional characterisation of a race, the Oompa Loompas. They came from an island. They weren't just all little people, small people. Are they, what do you call it? Are they little people or small people?
Midgets, small people.
Small people.
Small people.
Fuck it, they're dwarves. Who cares?
Right. Anyway,
What
moving
the
right
fuck?
along.
I'm sick of you can't use blind, deaf.
What about fairy
Small.
penguins?
No.
Oh, that offends me.
Good. I'm
They're
glad.
little
Little
penguins
That
now.
offends me too.
Fuck.
And you know what? If I'm having a gay old time, it doesn't mean I'm having a homosexual moment.
Well, I can have a gay old time in two ways, can't
You
I?
can, and I don't begrudge you that. Sorry, Carla. We digress.
Funny. Anyway, back to the story. So by the late 90s, New Orleans was becoming the unlikely rap capital of the world, thanks to the business acumen of Master P and his No Limit Records roster of Mia X, C Murder, Mystical, none of whom I've heard of, and the California transplant Snoop Dogg, who we have heard of.
Ooh.
Master P was scooping up talent across the
Master
city,
P,
and
come
Mac
on.
was a top
What
free
a
agent.
stupid name. Master P.
Master P.
It's really good at going to the toilet.
He
Yeah.
wheezes everywhere.
He's Master D.
It's like that character from Little Britain. Anne, is it? That just wheezes. Oh, no, Anne's.
that
There's the
one.
one who just wheezes everywhere in the shops. And
In
stuff.
the post
I
office.
don't remember that.
Yes.
I
Anyway.
clearly haven't watched enough Little Britain.
I know, I'd forgotten of it. I need to go back and watch it.
Back-
Oh,
Catalogue,
Little
here we
Britain
come.
is gold.
Right.
God,
Yeah.
Oh, don't
I
worry.
went and saw the live performance up in Brisbane when it was out with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And true to form, we drank quite a bit of wine. She ended up having to vomit in her cup at her seat because she didn't want to leave because she was enjoying it so much.
He's Caitlin.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
just don't say
Don't
Laura.
use names.
Edit.
Anyway,
It might have been
but
someone we both know, as it turns out.
it is, yes.
That's what's it.
Sorry, if that individual happens to listen to the show.
Vomiting in a
Why
cup.
the
No, I'm going back to our olden days.
Oh, with the
Let's rock.
let's rock.
Yeah.
Duke
Duke
Nukem.
Nukem.
And let's go.
Yeah, Peachy's got it. Bitch. Hated that Peachy. Anyway,
He always smashed you.
sorry, in joke there, Carla.
yeah.
Moving on.
So by
No worries.
1996, he was an official member of No Limit Records, the hottest label in America. But by 2000, Mac had grown frustrated with his No Limit deal, disappointed by the performance of his second album, World War III. He wanted to get back to the music he loved before he joined and launch his own label with his family as his prime helpers. On the night of the 20th of February 2000, he had a gig scheduled at Club Mercedes in Slidell, Louisiana, about 90 minutes of where he lived in Baton Rouge. His family were to help, his mother working the door, and his dad and brother Chad inside to make sure things ran smoothly. So Phipps really didn't want to perform at the gig. The 22-year-old had just returned from doing shows in Mississippi and was about to embark on another tour. He was asleep when his dad, Phipps Sr. Why do we have to call him Phipps Sr. when he's his dad? I feel like he's got his...
You're telling the story. You can
I
call him whatever you
know, I'm
like.
so retarded sometimes. Oh, can I use that word?
No, that's
No.
another one that's out.
Another edit.
It's going to be really hard to podcast when I can't use words. That's going to happen one
It is a
day.
bit limiting. I agree.
You're going to have to use interpretive dance.
Yeah, we'll have to go to video on YouTube by then.
So his dad came to get him to go to the show. Looking back, his father said, I think about that moment all the time. I remember him sleeping and thinking I could just let him sleep. I felt so guilty about waking him up. Knowing what I know, that's quite emotive at this point.
I
For
don't
you
even know the
guys,
story, but I already feel sad.
Just remember this.
Yeah.
So when
Good job.
Mac woke up, he decided to go ahead and perform. After all, he owed it to his fans, and there were plenty of them. So he headed off to perform a gig that would change the course of his life. So whilst at the club, according to witnesses, a fight broke out on the dance floor during the show. In the midst of the fight, a gunshot was heard, prompting people to run to the exits. But Mac says he stayed behind to look for his mother. Many who weren't close to the fracas said they weren't sure the noise they heard was an actual gunshot or whether it was a gunshot sound effect from the No Limit music the DJ was playing. Mac, who says he didn't see the fight start, pulled out a gun he kept for self-defense. Though he says he never fired the gun, witnesses saw him holding it and pointing it towards the ceiling. I find that odd that you're going to perform a concert or a show and you take a gun.
I'm not sure. I think you've got to think about context. So, everyone in America, I know I generalise, but a lot of people in America carry guns. This is what you're close to the story. What period is this around, like the Tupac and
around 2000?
Yeah, so you had Tupac beaten shot. You had
Mr.
Fitty has been
50
shot
Cent.
several times, whatever. Because I don't think it's just a rap situation. It's a bit of a gang and rap situation. Not with this individual, from anything that you've said so far, but certainly the wider culture that he's operating within.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure taking a gun is that odd. I mean, it is definitely to us.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, had he not taken the gun, this
Everything
whole
that
story
goes on
wouldn't
will
have
be over.
played out. So there's an awful lot. That decision to take a gun to a show that he's going to perform changed the whole course of his life. Not because of his doing, but it's just an interesting thing. And I kind of like the gun laws that we have where we don't have that temptation to take a gun. When he found out his mother was already outside, he and most of his crew left. His dad stayed behind, though, and saw 19-year-old Baron Victor Jr. on the ground bleeding. He'd been shot in the arm. A nursing student was tending to the wound, and she told Phipps Sr. that Victor would be fine. So he left too, trailing behind Mac and the rest on the way to Baton Rouge. Back at the house, everyone was buzzing about what happened. All they knew was that a fight broke out and someone had gotten shot. When Phipps Sr. arrived home, he quickly got ready for bed, putting on his PJ pants, also known as pajama pants for those who don't use the PJ.
Is that another misappropriated word that you're upset about now?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No, we can call them pajamas.
But we can call them PJs,
Yeah.
can't we? Yeah.
It's true.
Just checking.
So before he could get his top on, he noticed a commotion outside. He walked out to see 3 police officers with guns drawn, yelling at him to get on his knees. And he says, "What's going on, officers?" "We're looking for Mac. He's under arrest for murder." Well played. Order in the court. Schmidty bought me a gavel, and I love it.
Bought all of us a gavel, just haven't got around to sending you one. Sorry, Carla.
So Mac was taken to St Tammany Parish Sheriff's interrogation room, where he sat bewildered. He was being questioned about a shooting he wasn't even sure had happened until he'd already left Club Mercedes. He wanted to get out of the interrogation room as fast as he could. So before he even had a lawyer present,
Oh, God.
Regina's heckles just raised. He lied, telling defective detectives, I think is appropriate. Call that what it is. You can't say midget, but you can say defective
I'm not
detective.
misappropriating a word. I'm applying an adjective to these detectives, being that they are defective.
Yes,
It's different.
It's a good call.
Yeah.
So he lied, telling detectives that he didn't have a gun on him. His main concern was a concealed weapons charge. Murder never crossed his mind.
Oh, well, it wouldn't if you didn't murder someone.
Correct. But also, from his perspective, he was so confident he was getting out of jail because he felt whoever got shot was living, he remembered.
Yeah, that's right.
He was going to wake up and be able to tell them who shot him. So he figured he's going home.
Yeah.
Mac's plan fell apart when a detective informed him that the bullet that hit Victor in the arm travelled into his chest and killed him.
Oh, geez.
Realising he was now facing a murder charge, Mac fessed up that he did have a gun. Now his plan was to invite the police back to his home so he could show them his gun. they'd see a bullet was never discharged and would prove his innocence. You'd like to think. So the police returned to the Phipps family home in Baton Rouge with Mac in handcuffs. He led them to his room where Mac says they saw the gun was still fully loaded and had not been discharged. That wasn't enough for the police. They came up with this story that I must have had another weapon that I threw out of the car or something, Mac recalled.
And my response is, what a bunch of motherfuckers. Anyway.
Ooh,
moving
that's
right
not the
along.
half of it.
Oh, great.
There's a lot more to come.
Ooh.
Great.
But-
Great.
Yes. And sometimes maybe there's nothing wrong with fucking mothers. I don't know. But I feel like these police need
Is it
some-
alright to fuck your own mother?
Oh, fuck
No.
no.
Alright, so own motherfuckers then.
What are you?
Ah, yes. Yes.
If I'm
Just-
back, sorry, we're again we're back on the language thing.
Yes.
So we're just debating what that insult means. And when I say motherfuckers, I mean
Own
their
mothers.
own mothers.
Oh, and that is offensive. Yeah, that's fucked
Nailed
up.
it. And her.
So the police proceeded. That took a while to get through my alcoholic foggy brain, but that was funny.
Right.
The police proceeded to tear through the house looking for a murder weapon, the family recalled. They gathered all of the siblings and started to question them until an aunt pressed them to stop. Then all the kids watched while Mac walked out of the house in cuffs, his mother screaming that he was innocent. Now, I cut a lot out of that, but there were stories about the kids and what they recalled, and it was really quite traumatic for the whole family, who obviously all believe that Mac is innocent.
Absolutely no doubt. I would like to add for our listeners' benefit that our guest star, Regina Lawless, has been getting quite fired up over here in the corner and may even be taking some notes as we speak,
Yes.
ready for her response to this.
Can't wait.
And I honestly, whilst we'll come back and recap on some of this, I think if you've got stuff to
And you can chime in
express,
as much as us.
yeah, if you're ready to murder someone, rather than murdering someone, just speak your words.
Or not murder someone and be accused of it.
Use your words like a big boy clone. That's one of my favourites from Austin Powers.
Gold member.
Gold member. Yeah.
Well, can I just add just a few
Sure.
things? There's a whole lot of wrongness in this case already. They take him back to his house. There's no search warrant, so whether he allowed them to search or not would have been a massive issue in the case if they'd found material that he provided, such as the gun. I mean, did they take the gun? Who knows? Did they test the gun?
Well, no, because there was no shot fired, so they're saying that gun wasn't the murder weapon. Therefore, he must have had another one that he threw out of the car.
Did they test for gunshot residue on his
No,
hands?
no.
There's
There he
Well,
was.
We
Like
haven't
yes,
got that
no.
far, but I'm going to guess no.
Mm-mm.
I'm
nothing
going
that
to
I
say
read
defective
suggested that.
detecting happening here. Someone saw you hold a gun in the vicinity of someone else getting shot, therefore you did it.
That's exactly what it
I love
And
seems
you're
like.
black.
Yes.
that. Reminds me of that.
I'm sorry, did I upset you?
That reminds me of that line from Lethal Weapon 2, where I'm going to do a bad South African accent.
Mr.
But he says,
Owen, who's the dickhead now?
"Who's the dickhead now? Yeah. You don't want to go to South Africa? You're black." That's one of the lines from Lethal Weapon
You
2.
don't want to go
Yeah,
to Danny Glover.
because he's black. So the
what
door
happens when you're
closed
in the
behind
same
Mac
space.
and the police. No murder weapon was ever found. Regina,
Regina,
she just pulled an angry face.
very angry face. Have a drink.
And
Every
get-
time
Yeah.
you feel angry, have a drink. And then you can be as pissed as I was in Mediocre Murders.
And then
Can't
you would
wait.
nearly be up to
Because I was
Schmidty and I.
very angry in that episode. Right.
So, if this part has made you angry,
Oh,
listen to this.
Strap yourself in, baby.
So after a few days, Mac's dad started hearing rumours out of the Broadmoor neighbourhood that someone was bragging about killing Victor. Order.
Alright, sorry, I'm gonna get over the gavel thing. Oh, God.
Thomas Williams, 36 at the time, had been a friend of the family and was engaged to Mac's aunt, who had 2 kids with her. He helped out with the security for Mac's shows, and now he was supposedly telling people he committed the shooting that put Mac in prison. Mac's dad arranged to meet Thomas outside of the gas station where he told him, "You've got to do what's right, man. What if it was your son?" So William said to Mac's dad that he would confess, but he was scared. He disappeared for a few days until his conscience took over. This is something I don't get. Schmidty, you might understand it. So with his pasta on hand, and that's not Italian pasta,
No,
it's
a
religious
priest. I know.
pasta.
Yeah.
Pasta.
Here we go with Paul ridiculing my faith again. But anyway, let's move
Let's
on.
go on a religious rant.
Let's not.
An anti-religious rant, maybe.
Mm.
Williams went to the St Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office and confessed. In his videotaped statement, he said Barron was charging at me with a beer bottle, causing him to panic and shoot in self-defence. But the St Tammany police never charged him for the killing or searched his place for the murder weapon, even after he was arrested for an unrelated firearms offence 6 months later.
He walked in and said, "I done it," and
Uh-huh.
they did nothing about it.
Did not.
No, he didn't.
Your mum did.
No, we've got the guy. Don't worry about it, chum.
Do we know whether Williams was white or black?
No, they're
Black.
all black.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't want to admit you're wrong.
Of course not.
I mean, I assume.
Yeah. No, because he was a friend of the
Damn.
family, so he must have been black. Because you couldn't possibly have interracial friendships.
Oh my
Oh,
lord, no.
this just takes so many bad steps. Anyway.
I say that in jest. This shit just really annoys
But
me,
is he
right?
black?
So,
I know you. I know the assumption is, but he's black
Yes.
as well. There we go.
and he doesn't want to go to South Africa.
It's not a great place.
Goodness, it's a great place.
It's lovely.
Did you say it's
No,
not a
got
great
lot
place?
of COVID at the moment.
Have you been there?
I'd like to go there.
You haven't been there, and you're
does
saying
it-
it's not a great place.
because of the COVID.
Ouch, that's harsh. Didn't the Omicron come from South Africa?
Correct.
Allegedly.
That'd be my point.
Allegedly. Well said,
Yeah,
Regina.
yeah, allegedly, but also it's the good variant.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
mean, if
as
ever
a-
you were going to get one, you want that. You don't want Delta Goodrum.
That's what I was
She's
like.
a bitch.
How's the irony that Delta Goodrum
Yeah,
versus Omicron, which is good?
it's better. if
Delta
you-
has
especially
good in
if
her
you're
name.
vaccinated. I know. Anyway,
That's not fair. Delta is not the Delta variant of COVID. Delta sings,
Delta
I was born
Goodrum's
to
nothing
try.
to do with it, and she's wonderful. And it's a shame that her name is Delta only because it's now associated with Delta.
it's a
variant.
shame that the New South Wales Health used an image of Delta Goodrum
Oh my God.
on their promos.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I'm 100% not. 100% they did. Disgusting.
Oh, as we say many a time, but we digress. Anyway,
Far out.
it's only because this is going to make us very angry.
We don't even need the story. We could just talk shit all day without the story, although it'd probably bore everyone else. After he was charged or arrested with an unrelated firearms offence, they still didn't check his gun, right? So someone's come in and said, "I did it. He's got a gun." They never said, "Can you get us your gun and we'll see whether we can do any
The
ballistics
ballistics.
tests?"
No,
No,
nothing.
what we're going to say is, did not, and then they'll have one of those like primary school fights of, you are more.
I know you are, but what am I?
Now I know what you are. Let me tell you a little bit about St Tammany Parish. So it was nicknamed St Slamany. It had a reputation for the zeal for which former District Attorney Walter Reed pursued cases. Had a high conviction rate. Get into that one, Regina, later.
Can't wait.
And law enforcement's propensity for roughing up black folks.
Oh,
We'll talk a little bit more about Walter, who is not one of our peeps. Mac wasn't just any black person. He was part of a no-limit group helmed by a brash young millionaire in Master P, who had brought up mansions in Baton Rouge's most exclusive neighbourhood. That put a target on his back. So there was a trial, and during his trial, prosecutors harped on Mac's rap nickname, the Camouflaged Assassin. They misquoted lyrics, splicing lines from two separate songs to say, "Murder, murder, kill, kill, You fuck with me, you get a bullet in your brain. That sounds a bit harsh as a lyric. It is from 2 songs. Not sure there's a connection between what you sing about and what you actually do.
Oh, sorry, he didn't get shot in the brain. He got shot in the heart.
Unless you sing about the Macarena, in which case you sing about what you do. But if you were to look at, like, even Delta Goodrem singing about I was born to try, I think she was born to try, but there's not necessarily a connection between what you sing about and what you do in life.
Correct. Yeah, agreed.
Unless you're in this case.
Are you right there, Carla?
Yes. I was just uncomfortable.
Oh, you look like a midget.
Midget.
Oh,
I am. I was just
say
moving
that.
down to the floor.
Oh, do we need a little break?
No.
'Cause
You need a wee break?
let's-
You need a break.
I need a wee.
Wait, that wasn't a question for you to answer, Swanny. That was a question
Well,
for
you're
Schmidty
just
to
jumping
answer.
up and down, and I just was checking, but I can go on. I can hold it.
Okay. So those lyrics promoted Mac as someone who promoted killing. The defendant who did this is the same defendant whose message is murder, murder, kill, kill, you fuck with me, you get a bullet to your brain, Assistant District Attorney Bruce Deering told jurors in his closing argument. You don't have to be a genius, Regina, to figure out that 1 + 1 = 2.
No, in this case, 1 + 1 = 75.
There's no fucking 1 to add with 1 to get to 2.
Yeah, if this is a maths, I think you did this the other day when I was saying, I don't know, some complicated story. Like, if you were going down the road and this took this long and that wrong, and you did one of those. This is exactly that.
Yeah.
If you were in a room and you held a gun high and someone else got shot, how many bananas did you eat?
Exactly that equation. And the answer is
0.
guilty.
Guilty.
And not only that, the police obviously had numerous opportunities to prove that he was not guilty.
How does that serve their cause?
Exactly.
Well, I know you're going to talk at length soon, but, well, I'm sure you are. There is this pressure on the police in America to have this clearance rate, which is what I'm assuming is because I think you said earlier that they have a very high clearance
By
rate.
clearance rate, yeah, conviction.
Yeah. Well, not even conviction, just finding perpetrators and charging perpetrators, solving crimes is the clearance rate. And there's a lot of pressure in KPIs around American policing for that. Yeah.
Still the same in
It's
Australia
Australian,
as well.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Massive pressure for them to solve crime regardless of whether they actually find the
Right,
culprit.
perpetrator or not. Yeah.
That's right.
Better to solve a crime with the wrong perpetrator than to have it go unsolved. Is that
And I think in many circumstances, particularly with high profile matters, the media puts them under enormous pressure, and what they do is they have a view of who did it, and then instead of investigating properly, it's often the situation that they obtain evidence from their perspective that proves what their theory is
they
correct.
build the case around the
With the evidence they have.
preferred victim
Yeah.
rather than...
They find evidence
That supports
their version.
And we touched on that. Remember we were talking about the DNA of Ancestry.com about how it's... If you're trying to prosecute someone, that would be really handy. But also, if you're trying to build evidence around a case for someone who is just the easy target, I guess, that can be quite problematic. So, yeah, interesting. Anyway, jurors didn't know the prosecutor had selectively grabbed quotes from different songs, juxtaposing lyrics in a way Phipps never intended.
Can I interrupt just for a sec?
Yeah.
Why didn't they? Why
Yeah,
didn't
that's
his
shocking.
lawyers
yes.
either object to that evidence or tell the jury that was the situation? That is an enormous part of their job.
Yes, and possibly it feels like this was the wrong victim, the wrong suspect in a town that almost wanted to find him guilty. And I don't know that that's true, but there's just something very not right about it. Phipps maintains he was rapping about his Vietnam veteran father in Shell Shocked with the line, Big Mac, that's my daddy. Rotten, dirty, straight up, soldier. You fuck with me, he'll give you a bullet to your brain. So that was his lyric, not that one. Phipps never said, as the prosecutor told the jury, you fuck with me, you get a bullet in your brain, and the line murder, murder, kill, kill is from a different song. So I just thought we could take a little side bar. That's what we're
Have
using.
you got the song?
Uh-huh.
You did?
I'm going to play you a little bit of it because I just want you to imagine that you're in a court, you're on the jury, and someone's telling you that the person who is guilty is a rapper, the accused. Well said. Thanks, Regina. His songs prove that he's guilty, and therefore let's listen to this, and I want you to tell me afterwards if it's if you see guilty as you listen to this.
Fine. Happy to go through this process, but you writing a song at some point in your past does not prove you're guilty of a crime in the present. This is just nonsensical. But go forth and show me, or allow my ears to experience this.
I know you say that, but I feel like some of the jurors probably did listen to the lyrics and go, yeah, he's guilty.
It's theatrical.
Hence,
And
let's
that's
do this.
why they used it.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm sure that's what it is.
Soldier rag on my eye, soldier pin on my frame. I scream, whoa, when they come through, making that Mac 11 say. If I die in battle, tell my folks I wasn't no joke when I blasted. Wrap me up in camouflage and put that tank on my candy. That nigga was hip hop, that nigga was gangster, that nigga was tall, that nigga was slim, that nigga was shell shot. You wouldn't want fuck with him. I hung with killers, I hung with soldiers, I hung with G's, I hung with thugs, I hung with the niggas who probably wanted to murder me. Fuckers, I crossed my heart and pulled the trigger. Then God, if I die, let me see the eyes of my killer so I can haunt that nigga. Papa shot me through the rubber. He knew that I would be a young bad motherfucker. When I murder, kill, shit's real, the battlefield. Murder, kill, shit's real, the battlefield.
I'm sick and tired of telling these niggas I'm not that nigga to play with. They thinking that they can tell me whatever they want, I ain't gonna say shit. I guess I'm supposed to be letting you call me bitches and hoes to my...
It's quite upbeat, isn't it?
It's a happy song.
It is though. Like, I mean, murder, kill. I mean, woo! It was a bit more poppy than I
Shit gets
thought.
real.
Woo! Murder. And they don't even spell murder, ER.
I'm going to say it. We were talking about the use of the word midget earlier.
Please don't say it. I know where you're going.
He is allowed to.
Yeah, he is allowed
I'm
to.
just saying.
He can. We're not allowed to.
Well, I think you can either use it or you can't.
I wish you'd stop calling me that.
I'd call you a see you in the NT.
Oh, language is so confusing.
It is. And particularly when we have cancel culture, so words that used to be words are no longer. But I find...
It's like the C word. It's about taking back. Years and years and years ago, I went and watched the Vagina Monologues.
Yes.
And there's a whole monologue about the C word.
Yes.
And the whole point about it is to say it describes a
Disempowering.
wonderful thing and it's our word
Yeah.
and we shouldn't let it be used as an insult.
Yep.
So we should take it back and we should use it all the time.
We have all of that in the gay world too, right?
Yeah.
I get it.
As an anecdote, I turned to my boss, who was a absolutely
next
delightful,
Tuesday. Oh.
absolutely delightful middle-class English lady. This was in Bath, where I was watching
Bath.
this in Bath. That's how they say it in Bath. In Bath, that's how I always said it. And I was surrounded by lovely middle-class people who were all very proper. And I said, all right, you pack of I'll see you next week. And in context, that was fine.
You've just dropped the first C bomb.
I did, because the whole point of the context was taking back a word that is describing, as my father used to say, you're describing something wonderful. It's not an insult. It's a lovely thing.
Didn't you find the song to be quite upbeat though?
I did find it upbeat. I struggled to understand the lyrics, if I'm honest.
Yeah, agreed. But I thought a lot of it may have been to do with, and again, I couldn't really make it out. It's rap. It's too fast. I need to be able to read it.
I'm
But
a bit old.
was it about
and
him
well.
being the son of a Vietnam vet? I think.
Carl,
I think
I
the
would have
idea
thought
is-
if any of us was good at rapping, it would be you after your I
Oh.
like big butts.
She's a great rapper.
I'll take that as a
Tea
compliment.
Cakes Hun. Remember?
I remember. Yes. But did you get the feeling like that song it didn't feel sinister
No, I agree.
in its tone? I know if you want to use it against someone, and to be honest, if I'd read the lyrics without hearing the way it sounded kind of, upbeat for the want of a better word.
It didn't sound threatening.
No, not at all. Not at all. It didn't
But the
sound
lyrics
like it was
were pretty
Dark.
dark. Yeah.
But they always are. Rappers are always saying the absolute worst things. I mean, I don't know why they choose to do that, but
Well, that's a bit of a
'cause
stereotype.
they're hard. I don't know. Anyway, so that was part of one of the songs that was sampled, was it, when they used the lyrics?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So also at the trial, the prosecution laid out all the guns they found at Mac's house in front of the jury without mentioning that they belonged to his father.
Can I interrupt?
Could you?
How is that relevant? Were they saying that any of those guns were the murder weapon or were used for the purposes of shooting?
I'm assuming it's character assassination to
can't do
say
that.
Mac has all of these weapons because he's the camouflage assassin, but not even any of those weapons were
That
his.
is
They were his dad's.
completely prejudicial and would not be allowed in Australia anyway, or in Victoria. Perhaps I should make it a little more local.
So the prosecution also cast doubt on Williams' confession. So remember, Williams confessed to it, portraying him as a loyal member of the entourage who was willing to take the prison sentence for the bigger rap star. They also used the fact that Williams recalled being 6 to 10 feet away from Victor when he shot him, and evidence that the gunshot was fired at close range to dismiss his confession. He was never called as a witness, and later pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice because his statement contradicted the coroner's report.
In what way?
Well, because they said that Mac did it and it was done at close range, and he's saying it was done 6 to 10 feet away, and therefore he's making stuff up.
So was Mac within close range of that guy?
There's no... Oh, well, we'll get to that. So, yeah, he...
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good question, though. Mac says, the DA did a damn good job, but very devious. He had me on trial, and even though I didn't have a criminal history or anything, he managed to convince these jurors that I was a monster. Still, neither Mac nor anyone in his family thought he would get convicted. He hired the best lawyers he could, one of whom, Jason Williams, is currently the district attorney in New Orleans. So clearly, you would assume a good lawyer.
Well, he acts for the prosecution now.
Which is also a good point. So witnesses had contradicted each other. There was no forensic evidence tying Mac to the killing. Then the verdict came. Guilty of manslaughter by a 10-2 vote.
Can I interject just for a second?
Hmm.
There are also different characterizations of offences in America. So I don't know exactly what that means. If it was in Victoria, basically that would mean that you didn't have an intent to kill or cause grievous bodily harm, really serious injury, and it means that he obviously gets a much lesser sentence than he would if he was convicted.
In Victoria, what sort of sentence would you get for manslaughter? Is there a range that...
Yeah, the sentences have increased quite considerably over the last few years, but for a murder conviction, you're looking at minimums of 20 to 22 years. So that's the minimum sentence of imprisonment that you would have to serve before being eligible for parole. For a manslaughter, anywhere between maybe 10 years and 15 years as a non-parole period.
Yeah, right, okay. So importantly, though, the guilty verdict came from a 10-2 vote. So it wasn't unanimous.
in Victoria, for murder matters, you have to have a unanimous verdict. So you can't have a majority.
So this is Louisiana at the time was one of 2 states to allow non-unanimous verdicts in criminal trials. And the Supreme Court has since declared that unconstitutional. So that happened in 2020. I'll tell you later a little bit about the history of that.
Change in the legislation.
More so how that came to be, because it's quite significant and quite relevant to the case. A few weeks later, Mac was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
With what? Do we know whether there was a non-parole period?
No. But manslaughter, 30 years.
Considerably higher than in sentences than in Australia.
The night of his sentencing, he cried himself to sleep. So that was 2001. In 2014, the Mental Justice Project, Louisiana State University, and the Lens studied Mac's case and concluded that he may have been wrongfully convicted of the crime.
Do you think?
The study found that there was another shooter, several witnesses who doubt that Tillerson, who was one of the eyewitnesses, saw the shooting, several witnesses who said the rapper did not fire any shots, and a principal eyewitness who in 2014 signed an affidavit that recanted her testimony that she saw the MC commit the shooting. Also, in 2015, the Huffington Post released an article outlining how 5 prosecution witnesses were bullied by police and prosecutors into fingering the once promising hip-hop artist as the gunman.
That's
as in pointing the finger at him as opposed to actually digital
fingering
rape.
him. Right.
Yeah. It highlighted inconsistencies in depositions and witness accounts that could have helped Mac, but they were never shared with the defence. So he went 21 years in prison without a single write-up or reprimand.
Oh.
He said, "They made me look like a monster in that courtroom, and I told myself I couldn't convince those 12 people I was innocent, so I'd convince 12 million people I'm innocent by my actions." He took to mentoring young men with the same passion he had for music, running classes to help young men cope with anger, depression, and other emotional trauma. Mac was also part of Elaine Hunt's musical crew, so that was the prison he was at, performing cover songs, remixing his old hits, and occasionally making music of his own. Mac went into prison as a rapper and came out as a more complete musician. When the piano player was transferred to another prison, he learned to play the piano. When the bass player also got moved, Mac picked up that instrument as well.
It's quite hard to play both at the same time, though, I've got to say.
Agreed. One day in 2012, administrators at Hunt invited Mac to perform for the other men in the facility. It wasn't anything unusual, but this time the show opened with an announcement. Someone was going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award for his service work while incarcerated. The speaker started, "This man has been mentoring young men, performing for us when we needed a pickup." And Mac's listening to it thinking, this dude's done a lot. Then he finally said, "And he's a former No Limit recording artist." And Mac says, "And I'm just sitting there with my mouth wide open and everyone looking at me. It's the greatest award I've ever received." So one of the things that I've noticed through this story is just how incredible Mac's reaction to all of this is, but also when you watch that show on Foxtel ID that I can't recall the name of, his parents were incredible. Like they don't have this real sense of hatred or
They're not bitter.
anger. They're super upset
That's what
by
faith does
it.
for you.
Maybe.
Mhm.
They're super upset by it. They absolutely see the injustice, but they hold themselves in really good stead. Right, so as I said earlier, the 2014 Medal Project report and the 2015 Huffington Post articles revived the family's hopes that Mac would be exonerated. But Warren Montgomery, who was the district attorney at the time, told the Huffington Post in 2016 that there was nothing new for him to look into. It became another in a long list of false starts. The ignored calls for retrials, the attempts to have the verdict overturned, and the clemency attempt that was rejected in 2016. In 2020, the Louder Than a Riot podcast dedicated 3 episodes to Mac, the trial and his fight for freedom, once again bringing his story to the national stage. Still, Mac and his family persisted, sending in another appeal for clemency. And in April 2021, Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards granted Mac clemency.
Oh, thank God.
In June 2021, he was released on parole.
Oh.
What's the definition of clemency?
So this is what I wanted to ask you, Reggie. I don't know if you have any experience with this, but he was granted clemency in April and he was released on parole in June. Is that normal time frame?
Do we have clemency here?
I don't
No.
understand what clemency. Yeah, could you explain what that is?
Not in the way that America does. What we have is a parole system. So you have a head sentence and a minimum sentence, and once you've done your minimum sentence, you can be paroled at any time after that and before you do your entire head sentence. What they take into consideration are all sorts of things like whether you got somewhere to stay, what you've done during your prison years, what courses you've done, how you've helped people, and whether they think that there's a likelihood that if you're released in the circumstances in which your application shows them, whether you're going to reoffend or not. That's completely different to
The American system.
the American system. And the other thing that I was viciously trying to take notes about whilst you were talking, Clarky, was that in Australia, there's a separation of powers between the judiciary and politicians. In America, that is not the situation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so when you were saying that
The governor gave
Warren
clemency.
Montgomery, who was the DA, was saying there's nothing to look at, he's doing that because he wants to be re-elected as a DA.
Because the DA is a political position.
Absolutely.
As well
Is
as
that-
a legal position.
Is it just because of that, or is it because that if there's no additional evidence that hasn't already been looked at, isn't there not a double jeopardy thing? But you can't do a retrial in America unless you have significantly different evidence for them to actually open a new trial. Is that?
Well,
or
but
that's
yes,
my
I
understanding.
understand that that's right too.
Yeah.
We don't have enough knowledge about that. This doesn't show whether he actually appealed and why his appeals. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a legal thing from my point
I
of view.
agree.
And,
I agree. But so if you get granted parole in Australia, how long would it be before you come out?
So it depends on how long it takes for corrections to undertake their investigations in relation to whether you have proper things in place to allow you to have supports when you're released. But I've recently had a matter where somebody should be deported immediately and go back to the country that he came from.
Novak Djokovic?
Well, he has been deported.
Yes.
Yes.
Good job.
Yes.
Good job. Yes.
And he's now sitting in prison. He was sentenced in.
That would be good too. Sorry. Anyway, keep going. I'm still on John.
My client was sentenced to a term of imprisonment which he had already done. What the judge was wanting to do was to have him released and deported immediately, but that is now taking 4 months. So he's going to spend another 4 months in custody before the wheels of justice.
Right. So there are circumstances as to why someone who gets clemency or should be released or should be deported or whatever may spend more time in custody.
Often.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to point out here is that clemency is not the same as exoneration. So whilst Mac was granted clemency, he's not exonerated. Clemency grant recognises a person's effort in self-development. It doesn't clear him of the crime. So he's also got parole conditions. He has a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew, can't attend venues that serve alcohol, and must complete 6 hours of community service a month.
And he has
He'll
a criminal
also-
record forever.
He'll also probably be seeing a parole officer for the best part of the next decade. And so whilst the punishment for the crime is lowered, he's still technically guilty.
Yeah.
So without a legal exoneration, he will always be the man convicted of killing Baron Victor Jr. So that, I guess, brings us to a point where we should unpick some of the inconsistencies in the trial. And Regina, I've got a number that I've already identified. I'd like to go through them one by one, if that's okay, and get your thoughts on that as well.
Sure.
So the first one is just around St Tammany Parish. So St Tammany Parish, according to what I read, is, or at least was, pretty much an all-white, older, conservative demographic. Not really rap fans, and certainly not a representative group of peers. What does that mean to you?
Well, the whole trial system is supposed to be a case of you being judged by your peers as much as the jury selection process will allow. In America, it is a far more complicated procedure than it is here, and they're allowed to ask questions of potential jurors in relation to their prejudices before making a determination as to whether those people can be placed on the jury or not. In Victoria, we as in defence lawyers, used to have an ability to have some input in relation to jury selection. That's been changed recently. So now we only have the ability to challenge 3 jurors without cause. That means for whatever reason, if you don't
Their
like
shoe
them,
colour
or they
their
look at
resting
the
bitch
accused in
face.
a wrong way.
If they're the wrong colour.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun! Sorry.
I feel like the resting bitch face would be a good reason to keep someone out of a jury.
If they do
Yeah.
a comedy crime podcast and are not going to take anything seriously, perhaps?
Yes.
No, because anyone who has done something like this will have a good analytical ability, which is really what
God,
you need.
We were hoping we'd get out of jury duty
No,
by
no.
doing this. Oh,
I don't
I'm
think so.
disappointed.
Sorry.
Bollocks. That was my grand plan all along.
On the
Anyway.
other hand, I don't get to be able to be on a jury at all, which is very frustrating. I'd love to be on a jury.
Isn't that ironic?
All right.
Isn't
so-
it ironic? Don't you think?
Don't you think?
Alanis.
Importantly, I guess who's on the jury can very easily sway the outcome of the.
Absolutely.
So the other one is the confession of Thomas Williams.
It's all very interesting tactics by the DA, and I don't know what was included in terms of where his defence lawyers attacked or didn't attack it. Here, if the prosecution has evidence and they determine that they're not going to call that evidence because they don't believe that that person is a witness of truth, they can still provide details to the defence practitioners for the purposes of them calling the witness.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that might have been something tactically done or a forensic decision made by the defence attorney not to call that person to give evidence. I can't tell.
Why would you not cause?
I'll tell you.
Why would you not call someone who's confessed to the crime?
Because
as a witness?
if the prosecution have done a big enough hatchet job on that witness,
on their character.
yes, and whether their evidence is going to be seen to be truthful by the jury, it may have been a forensic decision that they were not going to get any benefit out of doing that.
Yeah, right.
At this point, Regina, I'd like to ask you a very serious question because Carla and I both have a marketing background and it feels like there needs to be a rebranding going on here because it's certainly not a justice system. So what should we rename it to? Because justice doesn't seem to be any part of any of this.
No, I agree with that.
So just food for thought, as you continue with Paul talking to you, I'd like to, let's rebrand it at the end. Let's give it another name as a system.
Well, what we could do is perhaps make the system even better and just have the police make the decision as to who they think is guilty or not and then just send people to prison.
Why even
Clearly
have
not,
police?
because the police put us in this position in the first
Well, I'm
place by
being
not doing their
facetious.
job. No, I realise that. The whole system. I'm talking about the whole system, beginning to end. I'm not picking on just the legal component of it, but the whole thing, as you just said, you used forensic. You know, you used language which is around how manipulative in terms of the case is and how much manipulation goes on to win one way or the other.
It's not about the truth. It's never about the truth.
Yeah, and that's where I'm coming from with the rebranding. So let's not call it justice, because if you think justice and truth and liberty and all those things are what we're trying to get to, clearly that's not what we're getting to. So what are we getting to? Clearance rate system. Stick them all in jail system. It's not very catchy, Carla. Come on, work with me here.
No, we need to think about the name for that.
But what you've got to remember is that I come from one perspective of that system, and my view is always skewed because of my experience in relation to awful things that have happened or tried to be.
Absolutely, which is why your experience is so valuable, because we can make any third-party judgment on a situation.
Happy to.
And often do. Anyway, sometimes with comedic, sometimes with not comedic outcomes. But I think someone within the system itself, because if you go, I've only met you today, but if you go back to when you first went into the legal system, what were you thinking at the time? My niece is just undertaking a law degree right now, right? And the first thing that she was told by one of her lecturers is there's no justice in it.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? So what? Because she thought she was going into, this is one of the others, because they're all a bit bright. She thought she was making a difference. She thought she was standing up for
But she
the woman.
is.
No,
She is making a difference.
Can you talk to, because I'm losing all my faith right now, not in God, in humanity. Could you talk to me about that, please?
Okay, so if you go into this system and you have the right mindset and you're not lazy, and you're not easily manipulated, and you work hard, you will always make a difference. And that's from either perspective, either from the defence perspective or the prosecution's perspective. And that's the other thing that I want to say as well. I'm biased, and I always will be, but I also understand where the prosecution's perspective comes from and how frustrated they may get in circumstances where they think they have a watertight case against somebody who they think should go to jail, and some smart defence practitioner manages
comes up with something that they hadn't accounted for, or sways the
It's
jury.
also a learning process, though, because you learn by those mistakes about how to properly prosecute or how to properly defend. When you have passionate people doing it from both perspectives, then
it's a good mix.
It is a good mix. Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Paul.
No, good chat. So the next piece of evidence that I think is important to discuss is when the police searched the house, they only found Mac's gun.
Yeah.
It was fully loaded and had not been discharged. Whilst they also found other weapons there, none of them were the murder weapon.
I can't believe that the prosecution proceeded on a basis where they said, we don't know what the murder weapon was. It doesn't make sense because he's there. He is seen, allegedly. Well, I suppose there was some evidence of him being seen holding a gun.
And he admitted to that too later.
And so what was the prosecution position? They had to run it in a certain way in terms of what they said he did.
Yeah.
And to just say, to do things like provide evidence to the jury that the house was full of guns, but not use any of those guns as the exact murder weapon, because if they tested them, they would have all probably had negative results. They didn't test him for DNA, for gunshot residue. I don't understand that either. They picked him up shortly after he left the scene of the
murder. An opportunity to wash
His dad
it
didn't
off.
even have time to put his pajama top on. It was
exactly.
In 2000, was gunshot
Bedtime.
residue testing normal?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry, I was just laughing at the PJ top lady who's still going on about it.
It is a very important point you make. I'm going to talk about the jury verdict not being unanimous, but I think before we do, can we have a little break? and maybe
Yeah, but
top up.
I still, but before we do, sorry, I still don't understand why he wasn't charged with murder, why he was charged with manslaughter.
He was charged with murder, but he was convicted of manslaughter. Isn't that the situation?
But why did it change? Did he take a plea deal? Or?
No, because manslaughter is an alternative verdict
is
to
it
a
because
murder.
it was 2 to 10 that he got manslaughter?
Well, it could have been. Is this
Right.
where you're coming from? Is it
Yeah.
something that was a decision by the jury to come to some sort of compromise? Quite possibly. Or was that not where you were coming from?
No, it is, because
Yeah.
I didn't understand why we ended up with manslaughter.
And so I don't know if this is what we're saying is that maybe he gets charged with murder and then the jury get to decide.
There are, particularly in America, and I'm not sure of exactly what all the categories are, but, there's at least 4 or 5 different offences that you can be charged with if you've killed somebody and you're found guilty of killing someone. Here in Australia or in Victoria, it's basically murder, manslaughter, and sometimes intentionally causing serious injury.
So you can get charged with murder.
Yep.
And get found not guilty of murder.
But guilty of manslaughter.
But then, right.
Mm.
So the
Sorry,
prosecution...
here in Victoria?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes.
So the prosecution don't have to decide the appropriate charge. They can choose the maximum.
They always
and it
would
gets
proceed.
downgraded from there.
Yeah, so
they don't have to review their own evidence to say we actually think that this sits at manslaughter. They can just go.
No, sometimes they can do that. Sometimes
but they don't have to.
No, the prosecution chooses what they're going to proceed on. So if they think that they have enough evidence to support a conviction for murder, then that will be the head count on the indictment, which is the charges that the jury receives. There is always discussion between defence and prosecution and the judge as to whether alternatives can be left to the jury to allow them to consider. So that's where manslaughter comes in. There used to be others, but they've got away with it.
I had in my head that the prosecution had to choose between murder and manslaughter based on their own evidence, but that's not necessarily true.
Well, they can.
They can, but they don't have to.
No. So if they think that they can get a conviction for murder, then they'll always proceed on that.
But there's no risk they'll lose the manslaughter
alternative
charge. That's
no,
always
there
on
is.
the table.
There is.
Yes.
If people can't prove that there's enough evidence of anything.
No, but what I'm saying is that if they're sitting there going, we're going to go to court and we're not sure whether we'll win the murder charge, it doesn't take manslaughter off the table.
No, that's right.
So they don't have to just go in there and go, you know what, our case on murder isn't that strong, therefore we'll push ourselves to manslaughter. They can still go, it doesn't matter, we'll just go for that. And if that doesn't work, we've got a safety net and we'll get them with something else.
Cool. Yeah. Now, can I just go back to something you said earlier? You were using words like forensic and tactical and things when you were talking about the manipulation. Well, you weren't putting it in the context of the manipulation of a trial, but I was. I would just like you all to celebrate the manipulation of this conversation so that Clarky had to sit there on his Wii like he made me sit on my Wii in the last toilet break, and I extended the conversation. Anyway.
Have I told you lately that I love you?
All right, a quick wee break and we'll shall return.
All right, so the next bit I'd like to talk to you about is the jury verdict not being unanimous. So there's an element of the law that itself helped to put Mac in jail. For more than a century, Louisiana has had a law on the books that allows a person to be convicted by a jury that cannot come to a unanimous decision. The law dates back to the aftermath of Reconstruction, when new laws allowed black people to vote and serve on juries. During Louisiana's Constitutional Convention of 1898, new laws were passed that stated the purpose of establishing the supremacy of the white race.
Cool.
Along with poll
Sounding
tax.
so far.
Yeah, I know, right? Fuck.
Poll tax,
What could
yeah.
possibly go wrong? Yeah.
What was it you
What could
just said,
possibly go
18?
1898.
Oh, thank you.
Along with a poll tax and a literary test for voting, because you can't vote unless you're not literate, a constitutional provision allowed a jury to convict even if up to 3 out of 12 jurors voted not guilty. Why, I hear you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked.
Why? Why? Why?
Tell us, Paul.
Tell us more.
Mac's current attorney, Stanton Jones, says that particular provision was deliberately designed to eliminate the influence and power of black jurors. Based on a sort of understanding that the racial demographics in the jury pool in Louisiana, at the time it was fairly predictable that there wouldn't be more than 2 black jurors on a jury of 12 people. So you could just convince the 10 white jurors. So when I say that this is grounded in white supremacy, those aren't my words. Those are the words of the people who wrote the Louisiana law. That's what Stanton Jones says. So you can just see it, right? There's possibly up to 2 black people on the jury. So let's have a law that says that you don't need to have a unanimous verdict. In fact, let's just make it 9 out of 12 so that we can just discount their views. Fucking disgusting.
Yeah, but in the UK, a similar period of time, the Licensing Act of 1872 said that it's illegal to operate a cow or steam engine whilst intoxicated. So I guess my point is there are lots of very old, dumb laws that should be repealed and changed and not allowed to continue in our modern context.
Yeah, but it's okay to say that you can't operate a cow while drunk, but it doesn't mean that someone is going to get convicted of a murder that they didn't do. Yeah. That's the important bit.
No, I think the difference here is this is a law that's completely instigated to make sure that people have a little bit of right but no actual rights.
But yeah, perceived right.
Correct.
But what that law did is meant that Mac was allowed to be convicted of murder on a 10-2 vote.
Yeah,
so
I understand.
The impact of that law is massive, and I hate to think how often in that 100 years or more, 120
more people
odd
have
years,
been a victim of that crime. And I said crime by accident, but actually
a victim
crime.
of that law.
Crime.
And therefore crime.
Correct.
Can I just add something in terms of what the situation is in Australia? There is the possibility of verdicts that are not unanimous in relation to offences other than murder here. So, in fact, if jurors are unable to reach a verdict after a certain period of time, then majority verdicts are also able to be returned for offences of everything other than murder, basically.
So you could get charged with murder
No.
and convicted of
Not murder.
manslaughter.
Anything else?
No, because you're still making a determination. Oh, yes.
Could I be convicted of operating a cow
Whilst
whilst
drunk.
intoxicated?
100%. That could be
And
a
it
majority
doesn't
verdict.
have to be it has to be a majority verdict?
Majority, not
Oh,
unanimous.
yeah, not unanimous, right.
Yes.
You could be
So
convicted
there's
of
an
operating
example.
a lot of things whilst drunk.
And 10-2 vote is fine.
I feel like you'd get a unanimous decision on that.
I may well, but I just hypothetically.
But so you could get charged with murder and then downgraded to manslaughter because the verdict is not unanimous. Is that
I'd need to double check the legislation,
gut feel?
but I think that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with gut feel instead of actual fact. It's trial by wine. We don't need fact.
Okay.
But also, thank you to the people of Louisiana because that law stayed on the books until 2018 when voters made unanimous convictions the rule. And earlier this year, being 2021, not 2022, the Supreme Court ruled that non-unanimous convictions like Mac's violate the Sixth Amendment of the US Constitution. Importantly, that wasn't retrospective.
Yeah.
So Mac can't be cleared.
That is outrageous.
So then the other bit I want to talk about is just the misquoted lyrics. So we spoke about that whole use of chopping and cutting the two songs' lyrics together to make some piece of evidence.
Sorry, was that a different tune?
No, I can't remember the tune. It was so upbeat. It didn't matter.
Murder, kill.
Do, do, do.
Sorry, Paul.
It's all right, I'm just logging in.
I was
again.
thinking about misheard, a bit drunk, misheard lyrics as a crime itself. Because when I was at school and Suicide Blonde came out, one of the girls at school thought it was Super Salad Roll.
Oh, you want to make a super salad roll?
That's right.
Love devastation.
And
super salad
if she had
roll.
known, if she had known that could have been the basis of a 30-year conviction, she may have rethought those lyrics.
Do you remember when Taylor Dane brought out "I Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Baby"?
Vaguely.
My darling,
Sing it to
I can't get enough of your love, baby.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine thought that she sung "I Can't Get It Up the Elevator." My darling, I can't get it up the elevator.
Okay, last one. But what was the name? I try to say
Good.
goodbye.
The singing duck, Macy Gray.
Macy Gray, thank you. When she says,
How did you get that quickly? Well done.
It's a skill.
because he might not know anything about popular culture, but when it comes to song lyrics and tunes, he's
Very good
excellent.
at song lyrics.
When she says, "My world crumbles when you are not near."
Here.
I myself spent many a time trying to work out what it was, and I came to the conclusion of, "I walk on bolts because you're not near."
Did you really?
I walk. You have to listen to it. I walk on bolts because you're not near.
I can hear it, and it doesn't sound like that.
It does.
Okay, one more though. So, do you remember Kylie Minogue's "Better the Devil You Know" song?
Yes.
So, when that was out in the 1990 or whatever, driving along in my car, and one of my mates is in the back singing, "Better than Danny Minogue, better than Danny Minogue." I'm like, "What are you singing?" He goes, "Better than Danny Minogue." I'm like, "Do you seriously think she's released a song saying I'm better than my sister?" Hysterical. Yeah.
And
it's the name of the song.
And correct.
Yeah.
Sorry, Danny.
Oh,
And anyway.
she is better, yeah.
She was. Anyways.
So anyway, using hip-hop lyrics against rappers in court is increasingly common, according to Eric Nielsen, an assistant professor at the University of Richmond, who has served as an expert witness in these kinds of trials.
Well, that should be disallowed.
So there's been a number of high-profile
I
performers
think so, yeah.
where it's
I don't
happened.
know if I agree with that.
Well, hang
Yeah,
on. If there was a case between
think
Danny Minogue and, Kylie Minogue around defamation because Danny didn't like the song better than Danny Minogue, sorry, I don't think that should be allowed.
Oh no, I think but surely if it was something else that you'd created or you'd done and you were singing about killing somebody or doing something, I'm not saying it's the only evidence, but surely.
But those songs that were used in that trial were written and produced before this guy got killed.
That's
But
premeditation.
that's the point.
Oh,
Because they're
piss off.
saying
It's
that-
not like I was going to a bar and I was gonna shoot a
but
guy
like,
for holding and my alibi would be I was holding it up and my dad didn't
No,
put his
I don't-
pajama top on. Like, piss off.
No, but I think they're just doing
Anyway.
it as sort of more of a references to this is your lifestyle, this is the culture with
Yeah.
And that is the danger of it.
Gang culture.
If you don't have
Well,
any culture,
it's not incorrect though.
You play in the sandpit, though, I think.
Richardson
So
family.
I'm going to give you an analogy of this, Carla, because I agree with you. At the tennis this week, there was a thing where Nick Kyrgios was playing Daniel Medvedev, and there ended up being quite a nasty reaction from the crowd. And they were talking on the ABC about Nick's role in that. So once it happened, Nick told the crowd off more or less and said, "Don't do that." But before it happened, he was whipping the crowd up and getting them to react in a certain way. Yeah. And what they were saying is, if you do that, and if you do something that kind of leads to an outcome, can you then disassociate yourself from it when it goes too far?
It's like inciting violence.
It's that kind of, but it's like inciting people to. It's that whole Donald Trump thing, right? When he basically created a situation whereby people felt they had to storm the White House.
So, if we want to talk about, complete inappropriate racial what's what I'm looking for? Like how different it is. Donald Trump can effectively tell people to storm the Capitol and then say, "Oh no, I didn't," and take a whole shaggy on it. This guy has some lyrics earlier, not actually saying storm the Capitol, and then gets 21 years because he's black.
No, but what we're talking about is, do the lyrics that he sings potentially form part of his beliefs? Now, does it make him guilty? 100% not.
No, agree.
But is it okay to use that as part of presenting his character? And I think it's okay.
Is it?
I think it's
What
okay.
about every gothic or Satanist metal type musician who talks about, I don't know what they say because you can't understand a word of it, but all of that.
All that death metal stuff.
It
forms part of your character, right?
Does
and
it?
so I think so.
Does it really?
Yeah, I think it
do.
does.
Yeah.
It's not saying that you're I'm not
I'm
saying
on
that
your
that's the only
side.
bit of evidence
I think you're talking
against
bullshit, the pair of you. I'm sorry, I'm calling
Regina's
it.
on Schmidty's
Schmidty's
side. For
Thank
our
God,
listeners.
for once someone's on my side.
Sorry,
but, no,
Swanny.
this is bullshit. And
That's
besides
all right.
which, legally, I don't believe you can bring this stuff into bear on this case. From the little I understand the American
We're not
system.
talking about this case.
No, excuse me, we are. Sorry, when you think about
we weren't.
no, we
No,
were. We
he
were
was
talking about whether or not
No.
his rap lyrics were
No, you
pertinent to
jump
whether
back
or
to that. That's not what he said. He was saying recently there had been a movement to look at lyrics that were built. Is that right, Clarky? Didn't you say that? Not specific to this case. What did you say?
It's becoming increasingly common. So
That's what you said.
So
yeah.
yes, more and more people are doing that. So it was used in this case, and it's also happening more and more.
So I was
And
talking
you're
about
okay
it in
with
generic terms, and I'm okay with that. I wasn't specifically talking about this case. In this case, I can see how what they've done has been to misconstrue that, but I don't think in the context of creating, a picture around this is what you do. You can't ignore the fact that you're a rapper.
Yeah.
And you're called, whatever you're called, the camouflage assassin.
Camouflage assassin.
In every other... Otherwise, you would be a detective because you're not actually looking at everything that's in front of you. And he's putting that out there. That's what he's saying he is. I'm just saying that surely if the evidence is then stacked up that it proves that he's innocent, well, that's fine. It's irrelevant. But you've still got to paint that picture of who this person is, haven't you?
Yeah. I think if you're a prosecutor, you wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't bring up some of the things about someone's past that could link to it. Does it mean that
you should
it's
manipulate
relevant?
That to put two songs together to paint a
That's
picture?
totally
that's
wrong.
not-
That's wrong.
So the next part of what I was
course.
going to say is exactly that, right? So
How is it? Sorry, just how is it in the American system that if I have been charged with something or other for a previous case, that can't be brought up? That can't be brought to bear with what I'm being charged for now. So this is bullshit.
he hasn't been charged with anything though before.
Oh
this,
no, you're
ever.
missing my point. You're entirely missing my point. I'm saying that if I committed a crime 3 years ago and went through the proceeding of that crime, and now I'm being indicted for something else, that crime is not allowed to be brought into bear for the jury to then judge me based on previous things.
Yep.
And yet my lyrics of a fucking song can be?
Yep.
Nonsense.
No,
that's
because
what I'm calling bullshit on this.
The whole
No.
system is about character assassination.
Well, no, okay. That may be what the system appears to be about. That is not what the system should be about. And maybe we're arguing it.
So when you get a witness who comes on who is a druggie, a prostitute, anything that is deemed to be something that might affect their credibility, 100% they will bring that up, won't they?
But credibility and reliability are very important issues in relation to attacking a witness. But he's not a witness.
Correct.
He's an accused.
But he's saying he didn't do it.
He is an
He
accused.
didn't even get pulled on the stand. He was never a witness to your own testimony, sir. Where's that gavel?
Did I say that he wasn't?
Yeah, you did.
I don't think I did say that.
Yeah, you said he wasn't brought up. Regina gave
I
the
said
face and everything.
Thomas Williams, who
Oh,
was
okay,
the
maybe
one
I
who
misunderstood.
confessed.
I've had a lot to drink.
He didn't give evidence, though.
He didn't
I
give
don't know.
evidence.
I'm sure he wouldn't.
No, I don't know
Sorry.
whether he did or he didn't, but I definitely didn't say that he didn't give evidence.
I thought you did say.
Can I bring up a point in relation to that? If an accused does give evidence, their prior convictions in Victoria cannot be used against them unless they put their own character in issue. So if, for example, he had given evidence in Victoria that I'm not a violent person, I'm not the sort of person who would commit this type of crime.
Except, of course, you killed your mother and you slaughtered a cat.
So you can
Exactly.
use it to disprove their
Then the
testimony.
prosecution could leave evidence of that.
This is just lyrics of a song. This is
I
not evidence
agree
of an act.
wholeheartedly with you. The reality is that just because you release a song doesn't mean that you're talking about yourself in the first person.
Correct.
You could be talking about your friend or your brother or your.
But I've been at what I'm
And
saying.
isn't that then up to the defence?
But who are we
to
arguing with
say
each
that?
other?
Yes, we're arguing with each other.
I'm not. Of course, I don't think it. But why are you arguing with me?
Because you think
about...
that because he wrote a couple of songs prior to
No,
this
I don't.
case.
That's
what you said 10
think.
minutes ago.
No, it's not what I said. And when you listen back, it's not. The point was, in other situations, not in this particular case, that they are looking at things that create, the big picture of who you are and what you do and, culturally, what, who you're associated with, what you, believe in, what are you prepared to say, what are you prepared to, put out there about yourself? And as a rapper, that's what you're prepared to say. That's all I'm saying is that, yes, that paints a picture. I'm not saying that this guy said that his song was a premeditation, but I never said that.
No,
ever.
that's right.
Swanny, we're not having a go at you. We're having a go
not
at
you.
Clarky.
No, hang
because
on.
Clarky's saying that.
No, I'm not saying
and
at
I
all
agree with him.
that him singing that means that he would do it. What I'm saying is that forms part of his character.
I thought both of you were saying that the fact that he had recorded these songs speaks to his character and therefore is admissible.
What I think
I just
is
think it
that the
paints
fact
a
that he
picture, they look at
sings
it.
those songs means that the prosecution should be trying to bring that up.
Why?
If they're trying to
That's what
discredit
I'm
his
saying.
character.
But that's what you're saying. You're saying that then that can be used
It speaks
against
to his
him.
character.
Of
Andrew
course.
Lloyd Webber writes about the fucking Phantom of the Opera.
And most people should then be able to go, that's not
That's a song.
relevant.
That's
But
But why should it be
But why
placed
should that
before a
be-
jury if it's not relevant?
Correct.
It's not the jury's determination as to whether evidence is relevant or not. That's what
isn't
needs.
it?
No,
No, those
That's
issues.
surely their job.
no, it's
Their
not their job to determine
is
relevance.
to assess evidence which is relevant to the case that they're trying to
And
try.
also
And that
determine
evidence is not relevant.
But also then
the
to
issues.
determine which evidence isn't relevant.
No.
What I've
No,
learned here
of course
is have
they
an
should.
expert in the
No.
room, and boy,
They are
do things heat up.
They are only entitled to use evidence which is relevant.
Relevant
it
to
is
the
their,
case, and I don't
their
believe his
decision
lyrics
as
of
to
a
whether
song
they accept
written
that.
at any period of time prior, whether he's talking about dogs, wine, killing someone, whatever he's talking about, that is, an artistic expression that is not relevant to the case at hand, is the point I'm making.
In the interest of progressing the podcast, I think we should move on to the next point.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless it shows a propensity to do the same thing again.
Are you just agreeing with me now?
No, I am not.
Because
I'm
there's
just
no
making
evidence that says he
sure
even
that
did
we
this.
all understand.
It's not, so if he had already been indicted and found guilty of killing someone 10 years earlier, done some time, come out, written songs about popping someone in the a-hole, and then pop someone in the a-hole, yes, that would show a propensity to violent behaviour. This person has not had any violent behaviour prior to this. As you said at the beginning, he's a lovely, lovely guy.
Agreed.
I don't think that these lyrics have any bearing in the case and shouldn't have been brought up.
Part of the issue is, though, because I'm not a real fan.
Order in the court.
Excellent use of the gavel. I'm not a fan of lyrics that talk about that sort of stuff anyway, right?
All right, there you go.
What do you mean?
You're
You're just showing your prejudice.
You're showing a prejudice.
Of course there's a prejudice. Everyone has a prejudice.
Yeah,
No,
but
but
it shouldn't have been brought into a court of law
Exactly.
to prejudice the jury. It was brought in to prejudice
I could
the jury.
100% sit in front of in a court and listen to someone's lyrics and go, they are not my kind of lyrics. I don't like that. I also have the ability to say that whilst I don't like the lyrics and the songs you sing about, none of this makes you guilty.
Paul Kelly.
Therefore, it's completely irrelevant
Still
to the
on top.
determination of the jury, so it shouldn't be before them.
Good chat.
All right.
Because,
on.
you know why?
If you think that
We're gonna be
fires
here
you
all
up,
night.
wait till you hear this bit.
All right.
So the next bit is around eyewitnesses and allegations of coercion of witnesses to testify against Phipps. Regina, for those of you who can't see her, is almost in a fetal position.
Rocking backwards and forwards in the corner.
So there were two eyewitnesses, Nathaniel Tillison and Yulon James. Jurors heard Nathaniel Tillison, the victim's cousin, so is related to the victim, testify that he looked Mac dead in his eyes as he shot Barron. That's how vivid his recollection of it was. What prosecutors didn't tell Mac's lawyers, and therefore the jury didn't hear it either, was the testimony from Jerry Price, who placed Tillison outside the club during the shooting.
So that's all about the duty of disclosure by the prosecution. And again, it gets back to what defence lawyers have to do in terms of being absolutely See, I've had too much to drink. All right, so let's just use this story. So had a situation where a client came to see me who had previously been represented by another lawyer, and the lawyer had said, listen, you have to plead guilty. You've said you've made full admissions in your record of interview. And he said, I haven't. And the lawyer said, listen, you're costing me money, so let's get it over and with and you can plead guilty. He said, no. Then he came to see me and he told me that what had happened, and I got a copy of his record of interview, which the police had said he'd made full admissions to this theft of a motor car. And the reality was he had said no comment to every question in that record of interview. Therefore, what the police had put in their little document about what he'd said in his record of interview was completely false. And eventually what happened when we pushed back is that the police withdrew the charge against him. So that is just an indication of how, if you have a lawyer who works hard,
who's passionate
at what they do.
Yeah, but this goes back to, episode mediocre manslaughter. Just fucking do your job.
Yes, that's right.
That's all it comes back to, is the people who are just arsey, lazy, not doing their job.
Yeah.
But also, one thing that I see out of this is, can you then charge the police or the prosecution with false testimony, or like if they're actually saying that and it's not true, where's the repercussion for them? Because I feel like for everyone else, if you say the wrong thing in this process, you get in trouble. But if you're the police and you make shit up and you also clearly in this case lie, you're immune.
Let's ask the prosecution in relation to that.
That might be a bigger conversation for another time.
Who's that?
Anyway, shush,
Anyway.
I'm going to have to edit that out. Let's move on.
All right, so let's hear more.
Moving on.
Goodness. So again, there were two eyewitnesses, right? One of them said he looked Mac dead in his eyes as he shot Barron. Another witness said he was outside the club at the
Were
time of the
both
shooting.
called during the trial?
I can't tell you. Oh, no, sorry, because the prosecutors didn't tell Mac's legal team about the fact that Jerry Price had said that he wasn't even in the club at the time.
Okay, so there's lots of case law about that in Victoria and about the prosecution's duty to disclose to defence any material which may assist the defence case. The reality is usually a different situation though. If you don't ask all the right questions and you don't ask them to provide you with all of the material, then they rely on the lazy lawyer principle, which is that you'll just...
But is it that simple to just say, I want all the information?
No, it's not. It's not ever that simple.
Right. Because
you have to know what you call all of the information, and sometimes the information is called different things, and if you as a defence lawyer don't ask for that specific thing, then what they provide you is the other material.
So there's no blanket, you need to tell us everything you know.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, wow. The other star witness, so two people were eyewitnesses. One of them was placed outside of the club. The other one, who testified she saw Phipps fire the fatal shot, said she was repeatedly threatened by the parish district attorney's office,
What was his name?
headed by DA Walter Reed, who left office in January amid a reported federal grand jury investigation into campaign funds and side businesses. So Yule and James said they stalked my house, they stalked my job, and they stalked my family. She now acknowledges she didn't see anything and testified falsely against Phipps. The DA came over to my parents' house and told me I would have my baby in prison if I didn't testify. She also said that the only reason she was coming forward with this now was because the District Attorney, Walter Reed, was no longer in that position. So she felt safe to do it now because she was always fearful that he would convict her of something.
Okay.
So the victim's cousin, Jerry Price, claimed police harassed him and pressed him to say he saw Phipps shoot Victor. The detective asked me if I was going to let that asshole get away with the murder. So Jerry Price was related to the victim. He is also the one who placed Nathaniel Tillison outside of the club at the time Tillison said he looked Mac dead in the eyes. He also said, I told the detectives I did not see who shot Barron, and the detectives told me that I was being charged with obstruction to first-degree murder and that the charge carried just as much time as the murder itself.
Was he actually charged?
I'm not sure if he was, but certainly the Thomas Williams, who said he actually did it, was. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
He was charged for, like, bullshitting. Almost.
The similar charge.
I mean, it's not a legal charge.
Yeah.
Bullshitting.
Yes.
That's
You're
what they
going down
accused him
for
of.
bullshit.
You're going down for
Do you know how many people
PS
have been
100.
convicted in the
You
court?
my friend, are a bullshit artist.
Oh.
And that's because his evidence was at odds with the
With what the
prosecution
prosecution-
Correct.
theory.
Well, the police also in the first instance, because he went in and said, "I done it." And
On
they said,
that,
we're going to charge you with
Regina,
bullshitting.
is it normal or is it even common that this stuff would happen? Because to me,
the threat by police of charges if in the event that you don't give evidence that accords with their view.
Is that normal?
Well, I wouldn't know because I'm not a police officer, but
Gut feel? Your face says it all. Yeah. Okay. So the Huffington Post identified 3 other witnesses: former nightclub owner Dwight Goyott, Phipps' cousin Larnell Warren, and club goer Jamie Wilson, who said they were threatened, jailed, or flat out ignored by authorities. The claims, along with James' recantation, appeared to cast doubt on Phipps' conviction.
why were his defence lawyers not told about these people? If they're all people who are supportive of the accused, then you would think that the accused lawyers would be told about that, not by the prosecution, but by people who are attempting to assist the accused with his defence.
I think the story that you just told around the lawyer who said you should plead guilty because it's just all too hard. I'd actually want to listen to you and try to find out why you might be right.
But remember, his lawyer was supposedly a very good lawyer who subsequently became
the district attorney. And I think at that point you actually said he became prosecutor.
That's all I said.
That's what the
I didn't
district
say anything
attorney is.
else.
What's that?
That is what a district attorney is.
That's what I'm saying. So he and I think
sides.
I think you're putting words in my mouth.
100% I am. This is trial by wine, and I'll absolutely do that because
Yes.
it's better if these words come out of my mouth than out of yours.
Yes, exactly.
But what I'm saying is that if he was a defence attorney who then became prosecution, perhaps his passion and dream was always to be a prosecutor, never to be a defence attorney.
Okay,
And
can I tell
therefore he
you?
It's a
didn't
smart
approach
political
his
thing.
defence case
It's a
with
political thing in the US. So being a district attorney is a powerful position because you're
But
paid by the government.
Understand,
effectively to
but
do
what I'm
that.
saying is,
So it's
in
worthy
the
of
context
having.
of what I know about Reggie,
No,
what no? You're already saying no, and I haven't even said it.
Fine, go on and say it. And I'm going to say no anyway. Go.
Well, you may as well tell me why you're going to say no, and then we'll see if it's true or not.
You didn't tell it. Go ahead. I can still hear you from another side. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is that I think this comes back to the defence attorney's conviction around defending guilty people, because perhaps they don't have the same passion that I know that you have around testing evidence, around people having to actually prove that people are guilty, as opposed to just going, you know what, it's Marbo, it's the vibe, maybe we just convict them.
Sometimes that's true, but and that might have been my view when I first started acting as a defence lawyer. I've subsequently employed people who have worked for the prosecution in my law firm, and I've found them to be amazing defence advocates. So it's not always the case that if you're defence orientated, you can't move to the prosecution, and if you're prosecution orientated, you can't move to defence. If you're talking about me, I've always been a passionate defender of those who are accused.
Yes.
So
the last piece I want to talk about is Walter Reed. So he was the district attorney. He once presented a St. Slamany award to a member of his team for being the year's most eager prosecutor. So at one point, he'd done a lot of dodgy things, but at one point he made an enemy he couldn't shake and couldn't put away. So Terry King was another private citizen and auditor by training. King moved to St. Tammany in 2002 when his wife got a job with the coroner, who was a friend of Walter Reed. The coroner was, not the wife. In the course of her job, she uncovered ethics violations in that office. And when Laura and Terry King went public, Terry was charged with an obscure law that said you can't talk about ethics complaints.
It's right up there with you can't operate a cow when you're intoxicated.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is the thing, right? There's a whole system that is working against Mac.
Yeah.
Like it's awful. And there's just all these little things that keep coming out. So Terry King felt the heat on him from Reed because obviously he'd spoken out against him and retaliated in the only way he knew how, being an auditor, by investigating Reed for corruption.
Go for the cash.
He worked with a community organiser named Belinda Parker Brown to find out what the community could tell him about the ways in which their civil rights had been violated by the DA. And within the stream of stories of being beaten by cops on the side of the road or having possessions stolen by the government, they uncovered hints of a work release program operating out of the parish jail. Go for the cash. Programs like this one are intended to give prisoners a chance to start earning
the same jail,
an honest living before they're officially released.
Was that Elaine Page jail?
Elaine Hunt. Elaine Hunt.
Elaine Hunt. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant Elaine Page.
Swanny, your recall is amazing, and I feel
it's
like
impressive,
you catch me out on this every single time, but well done. The jail is allowed to take a percentage of the pay to account for overhead, but King and Brown learned that St. Tammany's work release program was bringing the jail about $3 million per year by taking 3/4 of what its inmates earned. The majority of the money passed from the prisoner's hands to the sheriff's office in cash, leaving inmates no money to pay taxes or child support on the money they were supposedly earning. Meanwhile, Jack Strain and deputies from the sheriff's office were allegedly using the stolen money for family vacations, hunting trips, jewellery, and a new truck. So, whilst under investigation in 2014, Reed declined to run for office. In 2017, he was convicted on 18 counts of various forms of fraud and money laundering and sentenced to a notably lenient 4 years in prison.
4 years of nut
What?
punching.
Not even. 4 years. 18 counts of fraud and money laundering and sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Outrageous.
it's all about you steal people's money. You don't go to jail for very long.
Yeah. white collar crime versus
Absolutely.
So that concludes my story. Reggie, I'd love to hear. We've discussed some of the inconsistencies I saw, but I'd love to hear from you things that press your buttons, that raise your heckles, that just are not okay.
Okay, so can I just start with the death penalty, shall we? Murder in many states in America carries the death penalty, and the reason that I became a criminal lawyer was because I learned in year 11 about Ronald Ryan being the last person who was hanged in Victoria, and I said that I wanted to ensure that never happened again. And yes, it hasn't happened again, obviously, because the death penalty has been abolished in Victoria and Australia. But
so you're free to go and do something else now.
This case,
I've achieved my goal. I can now go and become a dolphin
What should
trainer.
I do next?
yes. So,
Sorry, I interrupted, Reg. Sorry. Reg.
That's Reg is okay with interruptions.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
But yeah, this sort of case is a typical example of why we should not have the death penalty, because nothing is ever beyond reasonable doubt. There's always problems with prosecutions, and the criminal justice system does not work perfectly and should not ever have a situation where somebody who might not be guilty can be killed.
Yes. I never really thought of it like that.
Well, as I said earlier, let's rebrand it because it's not the criminal justice system.
Yeah, we have. Hey, have we come up with a better word to use?
The political make us feel okay system.
The criminal circus system? I don't know.
Yes, that's a
I
good
like
one.
circus. I like
I
Yes.
think somehow it could be sort of worked in there.
Yes, definitely.
What were your other thoughts around the case? Or are we ready?
Oh,
to
it's just appalling.
It's a shocker. It's an absolute shocker. Yeah.
It gives me goosebumps. It the hairs on my arms just are raised
actually.
every time I hear the circumstances of this case, and it's all appalling. Part of the problem also, I think, is that, and this is just a personal thing and it might not be what actually happens, but it seems like the American justice system,
Circus system,
really does not work that well. I know a number of my colleagues
What a fucking clown.
have gone off to the States and worked on a pro bono basis for a place called the Innocence Project, where they
I've heard of it.
deal post conviction. Though it's always
a long time post conviction
to save people who are on death row,
wrongfully convicted.
And I just don't understand. I don't think so.
That was very inappropriate of me to say, but I don't know. Like, she always seems to be somehow involved in trying to.
Sure, it's not one of the Jenners.
No, it's definitely Kim. This is what she does. She finds people on death row and she starts to try and approach. Like, she did save someone recently. I can't believe I'm bringing this up. She spoke to somehow she petitioned like the governor of the particular state. I'll find what it was. And it's not the first
and yet
time
no
she's
one
done
can
it.
No one can get Joe Exotic off.
No one can do anything, but apparently Kim Kardashian. So that just speaks to more of the circus element of it. I will have a look while you speak, because I know that she's done this a few times. It's what she's now
famous for.
No,
apart from her big fat ass and marrying.
Let's be honest, what she's done. But
blah, blah.
because she's studying law now, so but she has, because she's got this profile.
Is she?
I'll find out what it is. Sorry, I know you think I'm joking and being ridiculous, but I really wasn't.
No,
God.
no, that's fine.
All right, are we ready to sentence? Because I am.
Can I sentence first?
Have you got any more inconsistencies, or are we happy to move on?
Oh, yeah, there's lots and lots, but I think we've discussed
we get
them
the
all,
vibe,
really.
right?
It's Eddie Marvo, it's the vibe.
Yeah.
Well, this is just recorded. Look what we've just talked about. I don't know how that's happened.
Are you recording this?
I didn't mean to.
Yeah, we're all going to jail now. We're all fucked.
Also, we're recording us, but
there's a whole
we
lot
will
of
edit us.
A recording within a recording.
That's right.
How very, science
Anyway,
Okay,
I think,
so you go first then.
So
Reggie.
I'd like to
Hang
sentence.
on. Why you should go first is because, like you said earlier, you cannot be on a jury.
Yes,
So this is
100%.
the one opportunity that you'll get
Okay.
unless you come back.
Can
and
I
tell us.
sentence?
now
And you must
go
remember.
hammer and tong, and all of the physical punishments that are not possible today are open to you right now.
Correct.
Anything within your imagination is open to you for sentencing, not within the circus system of the world. that we
Okay.
live in.
Well, I think I want to sentence Walter Reed.
Mhm.
Walter Reed, the DA.
What are you accusing him of first?
Small dickness.
uh,
Small dickness.
Bullshitting.
attempting to pervert the course of justice.
See you in the
It's just too
NTRE.
serious.
All of those
See you
things.
next week.
All of those things.
In the Northern
Because
Territory.
he has determined that someone is guilty of an offence without having the appropriate evidence, and he's manipulated everyone into a position where they won't give evidence in order to support the defence. So I think that is a crime punishable by.
There you go.
Oh, let me
And
think.
as an avid listener, and I know you're a bit behind our catalogue, but we have a fantasy world called Trial by Wine
Trial by
World.
Wine World, yes.
And anything can happen in Trial
Send
by
him to
Wine.
Peasant
It's like
You
Disneyland.
can go to,
but
I don't know if Peasant Land's out yet. Oh no,
No,
Tea
it
Cake
will be by
Sun.
the
Tea
time
Cake
we're doing
Sun
this,
is
of
Peasant World.
course.
Yeah,
Can
Peasant
we-
World comes out then.
Can we impose lashes?
Yeah.
yes.
Hell yeah.
Do whatever you like.
100 lashes to Walter Reed
Anything you like.
whilst he's still in jail, hopefully.
How long is he in jail for?
More than
Was it 4
years.
years?
Well, no, 4 years. But no, how long are you
Oh.
putting him in jail?
Oh, yes! I
Yeah.
can add
Oh,
another
wow.
penalty.
And how often do the lashes happen? Are they all at once?
100 lashes
Are you
every
doing
week.
25, then rubbing salt, then
Oh.
another?
Every
big
hour
All
of
of
the hour.
those.
Vinegar?
Yes, to Walter Reed.
vinegar?
Yes, vinegar and salt, 100 lashes a week. And he can have I don't know, I think his 4 years is absolutely not sufficient.
How many years?
So, 20.
20 years.
20 years
Nice.
for not attempting but perverting the course of justice.
Yeah.
And does it make you feel
And
better
hang on,
now that you've...
hang on, I think he should also have.
The power's gone to my head.
Santa's gone to my head. I'm so excited. He should pay to
Mac? Fitz?
Mac and his family
Oh.
$1
$1
billion.
$1 billion
I like
payable immediately.
Yeah.
I like
And if
it.
he can't pay that, then he has to stay in jail for longer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more nut punches for him.
That's it.
Good one.
Very
I'm
good.
really loving the smile on your face
so
as you're
happy.
doing that. Nice. Schmidty?
Go.
Okay, so I'm more inclined to go a bit further back in the story and cut this mofo off at the pass. So before we get to Walter Reed, and
You're going to the
The
judge
terrible-
because
He's
because
seeing
you
it
didn't
in
wait
the
because he woke
NTRE.
him up.
his dad's I'm gonna say, I could tell at the point where it's like, oh, I feel sad I didn't wake him up. I thought, oh, I'm going to cry right now. This is
Oh.
going to go so bad. I was ready to cry at that point because I really thought,
Yeah.
I thought he was going to die, to be honest. I didn't know where the story was going, but I thought
I thought he was going to die too, yeah.
Clarky has led us down this garden path and it's going to be awful. And I was ready for that. And it's been awful too, but at least he's alive and he's very resilient and he's actually added a great deal of value to the community that he's in. So
Get on with your
kudos
sentence.
to Mac.
Mac, get on with your sentence.
However, the police who showed up, didn't show up actually.
Oh, yeah.
In modern,
Called it in.
modern consultant parlance, how are you going to show up today? These motherfuckers didn't show up. They had no interest in being at work. They just called it in, as you say, Carla. So, because I'm a bit of a fantasist, I'm going to put them in a world. I was looking around the art. We're in a Regina's apartment, and she's got some interesting art. And actually, what led me to this sentence was what I think is what I would like to think is Little Red Riding Hood, who's a bit of a skank from what I can tell. I sent a photo to Carla earlier going, I think this is a skanky Red Riding Hood. And a couple of wolves and a basket of fruit and everything's going to be good in a minute. Anyway, that particular piece of art made me think of Roald Dahl's Story of the Witches. And in the Story of the Witches, I can't remember it all, but there's a little girl who gets, one of the witches curses her into a painting. And she lives in the painting and she can never get out of the painting. I'm going to curse all those mofos into a painting.
What painting?
It's a little scene of people who just have to listen to really loud rap music all the time, and the lyrics don't quite make sense to them, and the noise is so loud, and it's very uncomfortable, and they're in an environment where they're not happy with, and they are stuck in it in this painting, and we're going to watch them as this tableau of white male cis mofos. And as I said before, when I say mofo, I mean fucking your own mother is the insult.
But don't genderize it. It could also be females.
Sure. Can you look up for me how many females investigated this case?
Cannot.
Didn't look at the ballistics. Didn't check for.
But also
gunshot.
the jury, right? Because they
I'm pre that. I'm talking about the police. That wouldn't have gone to court if the police had done their goddamn job.
Agree.
Yeah.
And so I'm angry with the police for not doing their job.
But we don't know that they're male.
Because you know what? Last week or the week before, I talked about wanting to be a nun. My second vocational choice, policewoman.
But also, we don't know that they're male.
No, because you do a very bad job at storytelling and you don't feel the detail.
Just take your gender bias out of it.
And because this is
points
trial
you're
by
making
wine.
are beautiful.
Excuse me. Because this is trial by wine and you say we're allowed to decide what we want, I'm deciding they're all male. I'm going all sexist on this and I'm saying, fine. I don't care if you're male or female. You're in the painting.
I'm glad we've called it out for what it is. Continue.
You're in the painting. You're in the painting.
Yeah.
And you're stuck in the painting. And in that painting, you are listening to rap music. You are uncomfortable. You're in an environment you don't like to be in, and you're not getting out of it because you didn't do your job.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Witches.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Bitches.
Love it.
Swanny?
Witches be bitches.
Well, I'm sort of like trailing behind here because I'm the last one, but of course, but the two that I would choose to focus on are exactly the same. Again, Walter Reed and the investigating police on the first night, or actually, and then thereafter, to be honest, as well. And for my liking, what I would like to do is send all of them off to the prison that I have now installed at Peasant World within Trial by Wine World. We have
Well
a very old,
Is it-
antiquated prison.
But it's at least called Elaine Page.
It's called the Elaine Page
Elaine Hunt?
Correctional
Elaine
Facility.
Hunt?
Yep.
Or Elaine Page. Yeah,
Elaine
right.
Page Correctional
We
Facility.
have to listen to her singing chess. Yeah.
Where they're going to have to go and do it. It's going to be hard labour, like old style, awful. You know.
I've been working on the
Carla,
railroad.
Without
Is it
saying
like
it, you
this?
know what I'm
long
saying.
day.
It's a bit like this. At the end of the day, you've got nothing. Lane News reference.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry, Charlie.
You nailed it. You executed that well.
The idea bit.
I'll add the music in.
She'll add in a whole. She'll sing it all in later. The whole number.
24681 or whatever his number is.
Yes, but I just thought without having to spell it out, I think you were sort of getting where I was headed with that, Clarky, which is let's get them to go and really suffer. Like these poor people have had to suffer in terms of being at the hands of such corruption and ineptitude when it came to their job. You know, they're very happy to send people off who are innocent or who certainly don't deserve the sentences that they get. So let's ship this lot off to Elaine Page Correctional Facility within Peasant World and get them doing some hard labour indefinitely.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah,
Could you imagine how bewildered he was when he first got arrested?
Oh,
It's just so awful.
Yeah, awful, right?
Oh, and just so
Right.
you know, Elaine Page is notorious. Like, it is really
the
one
worst.
of the worst prisons that you've ever heard. Well, they always reference it in Law and Order when they're going up. Where they go upstate? What's it called? The one in New York?
Rikers.
Rikers, it's like that, but instead of Rikers now, they're all going to be mentioning Elaine Page.
Elaine Page.
You start this thing out, and it's like, oh my God. It'll come at the bottom, Elaine Page, they've gone to interviews. It's like, oh my God, that's the one that's in Trial by Wine World.
I love it.
Brilliant. Your turn, Clarky. Yes!
So mine, I'm going to start by saying that yesterday we went to the Australian Open, which for anyone who doesn't know is a tennis tournament. We had seats. We thought that was great. We booked row A, which is like front row, and we were in the sun the whole time, right? So the Australian sun is incredibly unforgiving. And I was sitting there having an unfortunate schmelting accident, and I said to Stuart, I actually think this could be a trial by wine punishment because it's harsh, right? It's really harsh, but at least I had sunscreen on. So the people I want to convict are those people from 1898 who decided it was okay to pass a law to counteract the fact that black people can be on juries to then effectively nullify their vote on a jury. So, sorry, Schmidty.
Can you add into your sentence the people who also thought it was appropriate to convict people for operating a cow or intoxicated?
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's put them all under the same umbrella.
Yeah, cool.
So I just think that to me, I don't know, as a younger person who was quite naive back in the day, I just felt that this system was all about trying to find guilty people and convict them. I'm a very big fan of convicting guilty people. The more that I've known you, Reggie, and the more that I've grown as an adult, the more I realise that the system is not about that. And it's really, really disappointing. But so these people who actually went, you know what, now that black people can vote, we need to pass a law to counteract that. Yeah. I just think is
disgusting.
It's
disgusting. Off. But all I've got to say is it was 1898.
Don't care because we can sit here and put times around it, and I understand that
there's cultural context. It's still disgusting.
That's my point, right? So I just don't.
Slavery was abolished. People were meant to be equal. End of.
Yeah, and you can also try to justify any of that, but I won't have it. So anyway, so my punishment for them is to come to the Australian Open, sit in the heat of the Australian sun without sunscreen to the point where they not only become lobster red by burning, but then also become black because they're so burnt that their skin turns black. And then I want them to be subject to their own filthy racism and treated like absolute shit because of something that's completely out of their control.
Love it. Love that punishment.
That's where I've landed.
Do you know what? There is something that, a documentary that I saw, maybe at the beginning of COVID, but it was a few years earlier than I just tried to have a quick look for it. It was called 13th, and it was about how so many decisions in the US were made to keep black people in prison. And then when they came out of prison, how they could then use them because they were still, it's after slavery, so that they still were able to use them as a workforce. It is so disturbing. It is unbelievable. And it sort of speaks to your point about this decision that was made in Louisiana, which how can they still control the situation? They had to change things when they had to abolish different things. And it's basically set throughout the, 21st century. But I would definitely recommend you have a look at that because that's, again, all about that. It was so shocking to watch. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that's how the whole system works. It's not about, as you say, innocent people staying out of jail and guilty people going to jail. Really, that's kind of by the by. It's business, it's politics, absolutely, and the other stuff is sort of, well, that's just the circus bit, isn't it, really? It's terrifying.
Yeah. And I think something that I do want to point out at the moment, though, is that this is a US story, and it's clearly, therefore, we're putting them under the microscope. But in Australia, we have terrible history of the way we treat Indigenous people. And we also generally don't promote that. So I think in America they're a little bit better at promoting some of the injustices that have happened. We're probably not at that point just yet.
Definitely.
But I think that we're sitting here saying this happens in America. I think 100% this also happens in Australia. We just have a few more hurdles to get over before where we actually talk about it openly and honestly and in the right context. We're nearly there.
True. Maybe that's something that Trial by Wine can actually work on.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some horrific stories that probably need more airplay than we give them in Australia. So I agree.
So that concludes my story,
Well,
the Camouflage Assassin rapper.
I'm going to wrap us up with the rapper. I'm going to say thank you, Reggie, for joining us.
Thank you.
Amazing.
It was a pleasure. I'm so excited to be part of Trial by Wine.
We appreciate your expertise. I like the fact that you back me up because I rarely get backed up on this show. But thanks. Also, Clarky bringing a very complex and interesting and really sad story. I'm glad that Mac's out. I just would like to think that his case eventually gets expunged. Obviously, well, from everything you've told us today, that man did nothing wrong, and it's a terrible miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
But it can happen anywhere, to your point. Mm-hmm. Also in South Africa. Anyway. I like to wrap it up. I like to bring it back. Anyway, all right. Carla,
Yes, sir.
I hope you're not too tired and you're not too nasally. I did see a few tissues come out
I was
earlier.
only the last little while that I got a bit nasally, but yeah, before that I'm okay.
A little bit of sniffy gooniness, but don't worry, I'll edit it out. And Woo, great episode. So thank you all for joining us.
Cheers.
Cheers,
As I
everyone.
say, miss you already. Good
Nice
job.
to meet you,
Nice
Carla.
to meet you too, Reggie.
Bye-bye.
Miss you already.
Miss you already.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.